Rick thinks about his past and how he wanted to become just like Yamato. This meant becoming an adventurer to try and defeat Kaiser Elite. Unfortunately, his mother thought it would be too dangerous, and his father wanted Rick to stop believing in fairy tales. One day, Rick found some hope as the doctor discovered that Rick had a marker indicating that he had an inborn skill. People who have the marker are extremely rare, but Rick was one of them. Rick was stunned to learn that he could have an incredible power like Yamato, but he was told that it wasn't something a person can manifest through training. Rick was still excited, though, and he was told to just relax and wait for his skill to come out. Rick couldn't have been any happier, and he decided that once his skill manifested, he would proudly declare to his parents that he was going to be an adventurer. As the days went by, Rick's friends would ask if his skill manifested yet. It still didn't show up after a year, but Rick kept his spirits up and thought that it would reveal itself when he wasn't a kid anymore. Eventually, though, he would become discouraged, and he was told that there are cases where people with the marker never manifested their skill. There are still a lot of adventurers that don't have any skills, so his friends suggested that he become an adventurer anyway. They told him how much money he could make, but money isn't why Rick wanted to become an adventurer in the first place. One day, Rick's mom was glad to hear that he was hired as a receptionist at a guild. His parents were proud of him for finding a stable job, so Rick accepted that this was his life now. Rick went about doing his new job, but he still continued testing to see if his skill had manifested. Years and years went by as Rick's parents aged, but Rick never stopped reading about the legends of Yamato. His daily life was as a receptionist, but Rick never gave up on his dream. One day, Rick explained to Alicia that monsters had been driven out of their lairs, so they have been wandering into town. Things are starting to get a bit dangerous, and some new quests would be announced soon. They were mostly low-level monsters, so he assumes that they would be D-rank quests. An adventurer named Zaid was a friend of Rick, and he revealed that he was promoted to B rank. This marked the moment when a person could make a living just adventuring. Rick congratulated Zaid, but he couldn't help but be upset with himself. Rick had done the same job for 14 years, and he's gone nowhere. Meanwhile, Zaid had been promoted several times. Rick didn't have much to complain about because his life was pretty stable, but he couldn't help but think how far he would have gone if he had decided to become an adventurer. Just then, Rick heard screaming as a giant troll appeared in town. Rick was shocked because it was incredibly rare for a mid-level monster to be there. Rick heroically tried to protect a girl, but she just told him to get out of the way. This girl destroyed the beast, and Rick was shocked as this girl simply thanked him for trying to save her. This was when Rick first met Rionette, and she revealed that she was an adventurer. Rick assumed that she was a B rank, but she was not. Rick was then sure that she was in a rank, and he was super excited because he had never seen an adventurer fight up close. Rick was then stunned when she said she wasn't in a rank either, and she was actually in S rank. Rick was incredibly nervous because S ranks are the cream of the crop. He had a question to ask her because she is in S rank, but he hoped that she wouldn't laugh at him. Rim had explained that laughing would not be a concern because, since the 9 years that had passed since she was 8 years old, she had never laughed. Rick just let it all out and revealed that he has always dreamed of defeating Kaiser Alpate. On top of that, he also has an innate skill that hasn't manifested yet. He explained that he was 30 years old, so he asked her if she thought there was still time for him to become an adventurer. Rionette acknowledged that Rick had courage because he tried to save her, but he was 30 years old, and he never trained his magic reserves. Rick already knew about this limitation, but Rionette explained that it's not just hard to develop magic resistance after not training it when you were young. It's basically impossible. Adventurers need at least some magic reserves, so she was confident that Rick had no chance at making it as an adventurer. Rick kept a positive attitude as always, and he thanked Rionette for the reality check. He could finally stop clinging to the dream he should have given up years ago. Rionette apologized, but Rick said he needed to hear that. He talked nonstop, hoping to mask his disappointment, and jokingly asked her to have a meal with him. Rick was shocked, though, when she accepted his offer, and she made plans for them the next day. The next day, Alicia could tell that Rick was in a good mood, and he excitedly told her that they should work their hardest. Zaid arrived, and the happy Rick excitedly gave him his quest. Rick couldn't believe that he was having dinner with a girl like Rionette, and he realized that his life wasn't so bad after all. Just then, people began scrambling as a monster had appeared, and Rick's good mood was ruined. Rick got worried when he spotted Rionette, but he remembered that she can handle herself easily. Rick was then startled when several more monsters appeared, but Rionette told them that she would handle them. Rick knew that he would only get in the way, so he stood aside while Rionette started destroying the beasts. She tore them to pieces, and Rick was amazed to see what an S rank could do. Rionette finished up the last monster, but she became concerned when she sensed something. Rionette had a flashback to a horrible memory, and she collapsed because of the terrifying magical energy. Another beast arrived to attack them, but Zayd appeared out of nowhere to rescue them. Some other adventurers showed up, and Zayd explained that the guild put together an emergency quest. The adventurers then worked together by using their amazing abilities, and they started annihilating the monsters. Rick thought he had already given up on becoming an adventurer, but watching this group fight made Rick realize that he was still jealous of them. RealNet warned him that it's too dangerous there, but Rick said they would be fine because Zayd is a B rank. RealNet was still terrified, though, and revealed that a B rank wouldn't be enough to fight the threat that is nearby. Rick was shocked, and RealNet revealed that the threat was a dragon. RealNet said that every time she feels a dragon's magic, she loses control of the magic within her body. Rick was sure that a dragon would never appear there, but he was quickly proven wrong. A gigantic dragon appeared before them, and even Zayd couldn't believe that one would appear in a human town. Everyone was taught at the Adventurers Guild that anyone lower than a B rank should never try to fight a dragon. One guy from the group panicked and tried to attack it, but it quickly became very clear that there's no way they can fight the dragon when it pushed them back with just the force of its wing. The group decided to run for their lives, but they were stopped by the dragon's barrier. They aren't able to destroy the barrier, so they realized that the dragon is not planning to let them get away. Zayd gave up as he believed their lives were over, but Rick shockingly stepped forward. Zayd reminded him that he was just a receptionist and there was nothing he could do. It turned out that Rick also thought they wouldn't survive, but if he at least stood up to the dragon, then he might at least be able to spend the last moments of his life as an adventurer. However, after coming face to face with the dragon, Rick realized that they wouldn't even be able to put up a fight. Rick was terrified, but he could still feel a fire burning inside of him. He thought he had given up on becoming an adventurer, but this feeling inside of him made him realize that this was actually the way he wanted to live. Rick then bravely launched the rock at the monster, but it didn't do anything. Zayd was inspired by what Rick had done, so he told the other adventurers that they couldn't let a receptionist show them up. The newly inspired adventurers then fiercely attacked the dragon. The powerful beast used its fire breath on them, but Z temporarily turned everyone to iron to protect them. The blast was too powerful, though, so everyone was injured, and Zayd determined that this was really the end for them. Realnet hated herself for not being able to fight the dragon, but it was too late anyway as the dragon prepared to end them all. Everyone had given up, but they were stunned when Rick emerged from the rubble. Rick became very serious, and he vowed that he would make his dream come true no matter what. Realnet was horrified, though, when she could only watch as the dragon crushed him. Just then, a voice declared that Rick had acquired a skill, and everyone was stunned when Rick lifted the dragon's foot. No one could believe their eyes, and they couldn't even recognize Rick. He didn't look like himself at all, and there was so much magic overflowing from him that it was actually visible. Rick realized that his inborn skill must have just manifested, and he wondered what took it so long. Rick gained a ton of confidence, so he told the giant lizard to give him everything it had so he could test out his new skill. The dragon launched attack after attack, but Rick blocked them all. Eventually, Rick fought back, and his attack was so incredibly powerful that it blew a hole right through the dragon's barrier. Everyone, including Rick, was stunned by what just happened, and Rick humbly said that that wasn't so bad just before he collapsed. A while later, Rick woke up in immense pain, and Realnet informed him that every magic circuit in his body was destroyed. Rick had been asleep for an entire week, and he was shocked to hear that Realnet sat by his side the entire time. Rick couldn't understand why, so she revealed that she was waiting so she could invite him to join the party she belonged to, the Orchaukenfist. Rick didn't believe her, but she explained that they share a common goal, and that is to defeat Kaiser Alpate. Rick was even more shocked by this part because it confirmed that Kaiser Alpate actually exists. Rick fought with courage alone. Realnet was confident that he would be able to grow stronger and fight alongside her group. Realnet guaranteed that he would become an adventurer, and this was the first time anyone ever said anything like that to him. Rick broke down from the sense of relief, and he wondered if it was really okay for him to try and become an adventurer. Realnet assured him that it was okay, and Rick couldn't hold back the tears. Back to the present, Rick's numbers were announced, and Realnet congratulated him on officially becoming a fully qualified adventurer. Rick credits his mentors for teaching him, and he thanks his old self for never giving up on his dream.